So next we're going to talk about is, what does government spending include? Where does the government spend the money? And why do they make these types of spending? Okay. Now, the first thing I definitely would want to mention over here is like why government spending increases. Um, Remember the formula, we haven't spoken much about it, but let me give you one. मुल्क का जो aggregate demand है, GDP, aggregate demand is the same thing as the GDP, basically total demand for all goods and services in the country. Okay, so उसका फॉर्मूला है C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Basically, everything that is being produced in your country, in Pakistan, everything from primary, secondary, tertiary sector, mein, everything that is being produced, this formula tells us who are the buyers of those goods and services. C stands for consumption, और किसकी consumption? Household की consumption. You, me, our families, the people of the country. I represents the business investments on capital goods and machineries and things like that. पाकिस्तानी गुड्स जो आप प्रोड्यूस हुए हैं उसकी. फिर G stands for the government spending, which we are talking about. And finally, export is about like foreigners exports. Okay, import हम subtract करते हैं because import is not Pakistani product. So how can you demand something which is not Pakistani? Aggregate demand talks about everything that is produced in the country. So over here, numerically, C has the highest number, and then the second highest number is G, government spending. Okay, in some countries like North Korea would have even like G bigger than C, because government वहाँ ज़्यादा control में है, तो government spending is more than consumers. वरना usually this is the consumption is the largest, and this would be the second largest monetary wise, the number government spending. So since total demand के अंदर government spending is such a key role, it has an impact on the direction of the economy. So when we talk about government spending and what it includes, government spending includes healthcare spending of the people. It includes spending on education, especially Western economies में जहाँ पे पूरा hospital जो है वो government run करती है, and they pay the doctors and they run the entire clinics and everything. And people get the health cards, they pay taxes, and then they get this in return for it. We call them welfare societies, where they have healthcare for free and education के साथ जितनी भी बच्चों का पिक एंड ड्रॉप हो गया, खाना हो गया, स्कूल के अंदर जो कैंटीन होता है, एंड देन एजुकेशन हो गया, टीचर सैलरी हो गया, एवरीथिंग स्पोर्ट्स रिलेटेड वगैरह वगैरह. Where else does the government spend? Well, law and order, the police, military, things like that. Then government spends on transport. Transport के अंदर you have all kinds of transport. Railway Corporation, PIA, Pakistan International Airline, and then even like these bus services and transit services, stuff like that within the city. अक्सर कंट्रीज के अंदर ये भी गवर्नमेंट रन होती हैं. Then government even spends on social security, like pensions and unemployment benefits. वगैरह. Government even spends on housing in many countries. Singapore, known for that, almost like 90% or more. Singapore की जो properties है, government runs it and it allots it to its people. So then people don't have to worry about housing. Whatever income they make, they spend on good services and stuff like that. They don't need to spend on housing because the government provides it. Then you have defense, your army, वगैरह. Government is also spending on those things. So government feels कि ये सब चीज़ें the government should be spending on, not the private sector. Although ये सब चीज़ें private goods हैं, meaning that private sector can produce all of these and provide, but the government feels that they should do this. Okay? So by spending more on these things, government can increase the demand. Look at the formula. In the formula, basically what we're saying is that if the value of G goes up, the aggregate demand for goods and services will go up, and that will cause the GDP to rise. इस तरह से economy अगर recession में जा रही है, is not doing so well, the government can spend on these things and help the economy move forward. So we can give like examples of these. When you say healthcare, you can talk about hospitals and doctors. Education के अंदर you can talk about running of schools and teachers. Salaries, doctor salaries. Law and order के अंदर obviously you have the police. Transport के अंदर we can have like land, air and water transports. Housing के अंदर it can be, we can talk about like government produced housing. And defense के अंदर obviously the government spends on weapons and army. The effects of government spending. All right, so the effects are the social welfare rises, employment rises, economic growth rises, more output is being produced basically. So we can say like aggregate demand, yeah, total demand, aggregate demand rises as a result of this. Okay. Countries sovereignty is protected. Sovereignty means the right. Okay, so with your defense and trade, the people are protected. When I say social welfare rises, what I mean by social welfare rising is दैट जो हमारे सोसाइटी के वल्नरेबल ग्रुप्स होते हैं, लाइक ओल्ड, unemployed, orphans, are protected.